Reverend Dante R. Quick, PhD. On Sunday, August the 1st, 2010, Reverend Dante R. Quick began his pastoral ministry at Friendship Missionary Baptist Church. 1 year later, on August 7th, 2011, he was installed as a senior pastor. Since his arrival, the church has extraordinarily had growth both spiritually and numerically. Only 8 weeks into his tenure, Reverend Quick and the Friendship family were featured on the front page of Times Herald as one of the largest African-American congregation in Vallejo. And if you have not worshiped there, please come. Pastor Quick was born and reared in Washington, D.C. He relocated to Atlanta to attend Morehouse College, where he received a Bachelor's of Arts degree in political science with a concentration on pre-law. While at Morehouse, he was one of the first recipients of the William H. Cosby Grant for Landmark College Gifted Dyslexic Student Program. Pastor Quick received a Master's of Divinity with concentration on theology from Princeton Theological Seminary in Princeton, New Jersey. He was recipient of the Jean Ann Swope and James L. Mitchum Prize in Christian Ethics. He served as the president of the Association of Black Seminarians, an organization that represents all Princeton seminarians of the African diaspora. Pastor Quick published his first article entitled "The Relevance of Race," in quotation, in the Princeton Theological Review, and is a contributor to the African American Lectionary. In 2006, he was called to serve New Liberation Presbyterian Church in San Francisco, which he experienced phenomenal growth in attendance and internal love. In addition, Pastor Quick served as a policy analyst for the ITC Faith Factor, a presidential initiative of the Interdenominational Theological Center in Atlanta, Georgia. In that capacity, he developed and delivered training materials and programs to aid African American churches and leaders in engaging in community and development programming. Excuse me. The interesting thing is what he has done secularly. Pastor Quick has served in the offices of Mayor Marion Barry, Congressman John Lewis, and Governor Zell Miller. He also served as a legislative representative for the Atlanta Board of Education. In this capacity, he has addressed audience at the National Conference of Black Mayors, the World Conference of Mayors, and the National Conference of Black Men. He also served as a special program administrator for the Fulton County District Attorney in Atlanta, Georgia. Pastor Quick relocated to the Bay Area to pursue a PhD in philosophical and systematic theology at the Graduate Theological Union. That's the one in Berkeley, as well as African American Studies. Upon his acceptance, he was awarded the President's Award and the William Randolph Hearst Scholarship. His studies are focused on the theology of Howard Thurman and the political philosophy of Ralph Bunche en route to the construction of an African American political theology. He was the first appointed Howard Washington Thurman Teaching Fellow of the American Baptist Seminary of the West, where he was responsible for teaching constructive and systematic theology and ethics. Pastor Quick was also one of the only 12 PhD students selected as a Wabash Teagle Religious Educator Fellow at the Graduate Theological Union. He also served as the student representative to the Graduate Theological Union Board of Trustees. On September 8, 2017, the Reverend Quick was conferred with his PhD in philosophical and systematic theology with a focus on African American studies from the Graduate Theological Union, University of California at Berkeley. Reverend Dr. Quick is a proud parent of Alexander Dante and Kennedy Danielle. What an awesome background for a young man who is now part of this community. And he started out with a bang, especially when he developed the midnight basketball games that prevented kids from getting in trouble. What a heartfelt commitment to keeping our children safe. Carol and I worshiped with him about a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months ago. And Carol and I looked at each other after he finished preaching. He said, this young man is truly, truly committed to liberation of all of our issues. And that Sunday happens to be Mental Health Sunday. And how he expressed his commitment to liberating people with mental health problems was very liberating, because he affirmed them and acknowledged that we all need to help each other to be full human beings. And with that understanding of that, Carol and I could not help but ask him to be the speaker this evening. With that in mind, put your hands together for Dr. Quick.
Good evening. Dr. Ubaldi just made my mother very proud. She's the only one who enjoys the reading of that bio. I will let her know that he read it. I'm privileged to be here tonight. There are so many people who could have stood here tonight. So many people who've grown up in Vallejo and lived here all their lives. It begs to question, why am I here? Just a word of assurance. Two things are working in your favor. I have 2 services starting at 8 o'clock in the morning, so I'm not going to be here long. The second thing is my last name is Quick. And so that works in your favor. As I am a Baptist minister, I will try to live to my name tonight. I want to bring you greetings on behalf of the Friendship Missionary Baptist Church, the 1,100 families that compose that church, the over 65 ministries that operate out of that church. We're pleased every year to serve over 6 tons of food to hungry citizens in Vallejo. And we're excited about the plethora of programs that operate internally. The second group I want to bring greetings on is behalf of my president of the Community Democratic Club, President Danny Jefferson, and the members of the Community Democratic Club. I believe that someone who cannot follow is not fit to lead. That the biggest destruction of humanity is ego. Philosophically, Aristotle and Sophocles tried to get to the root of why humanity destroys each other. We live in an America today that is self-imploding. We live in a nation where hatred and division and the small things of human thought have taken center stage. Whether you are a Democrat or a Republican, our politics are small. The vision for our nation has shrank. Leadership is rare. 800,000 men and women during the holiday that this Christian country calls the birth of Christ are unable to pay their mortgages and their rent. Whether you are politically for Trump or not for Trump, a promise was made. Whether you like the wall or don't like the wall, a promise was made. And now that promise rests on the back of secretaries for the IRS, park employees who have tuition payments due on Monday, as I do. Our nation is shrinking, and the vision for our nation is shrinking. But there is something happening in Vallejo. Something big is happening in Vallejo. And if we turn a blind eye to the big thing that's happening here, our politics will be held captive to the same midget politics that is destroying America. On election day this year, I stood in the sanctuary of a small Baptist church. I stood in a civil rights style prayer meeting. I stood with a gay white man. I stood with a Filipino American. I stood with a cursing black educator. We could not be more different. We could not be from different backgrounds. We could not have more different experiences. We could not have more different faith beliefs, but on that morning, we stood together. We stood together to affirm that small politics had no place in this big city. We stood together to affirm that the moral midgetry that we called school board meetings was unacceptable for our children to watch adults hurl names at each other, belittle each other. We believe our politics is greater than the destruction of our school system for cheap political gain. Why would someone put their child in a Vallejo school when the very people elected to manage it destroy it verbally on a daily basis? Why should we trust an institution that its own trustees will destroy in their speeches, in their comportment? We stood in that sanctuary to affirm that the American dream did not care who you married, did not care where you were born, it did not care who you worshiped, it cared about how you treated your fellow human being. The biggest form of modern slavery is the miseducation of poor black and brown children. We are sentencing them to death while we play games for self-aggrandizement. We stood together that morning saying that I believe God had more for us. But we also believed that the American dream, this notion of exceptionalism, would not have space for people to gain office by belittling others. As a city, we can't herald our grand diversity, our great forms of difference, while we all settle in our small tribalisms. When I arrived in Vallejo, the conventional political wisdom, Filipinos will only vote for Filipinos. Black people, if they vote, will only vote for black people. The angry white people will only support angry white people. It was horrible to hear that human beings were reduced to their most base self-interest and tribalism. And so we began to do something different. We formed something called the Community Democratic Club. And we made a calculated risk. Why should you only talk to people who agree with you? Why should you only associate with people who already believe what you believe? And I've discovered in my years here that you can be demonized for having a conversation with somebody who doesn't look like you. That you will be talked about for having a meeting with people who don't believe everything you believe in. How do you form community when they only must look like you, sound like you, act like you, read what you read. We call that Fox News. The theologian, mystic, and philosopher Howard Thurman says that a man must be so secure with who he is that another person's difference does not make him nervous. Phileo, to say that we are diverse and not live diverse is a lie. To say that we are open to all people and only stay in our small conclaves makes us moral midgets. To allow a school district that is 75% black, brown, and poor to languish in immature, Pollyannish politics is an affront against humanity. And so that morning we gathered to pray for diversity, for competence, and for vision. And in our most recent school board election, a man who can love whoever he wants to love, white as the driven snow. A man born out of old school African American communities and a Filipino American all stood together to say, enough is enough. But as dear leader is realizing, it is one thing to get elected. It is a whole different thing to govern. I came this evening with a great burden. I began to comb through my various experiences. Yes, I worked for a man by the name of Zell Miller. Zell Miller is what you would call a classic Dixiecrat. Zell Miller, when he became the governor of Georgia with his deep Southern drawl, poured himself out of a liberal upbringing. But he believed in a certain homegrown politics. Zell Miller taught me, son, know who your friends are, know who your enemies are, and know which one will do you the most good. Which confused me. But he taught me sometimes your enemy will treat you better than your friend. My brothers and sisters, we must decide whether we look alike, speak alike, or act alike. Whether it's in our best interest to build a Vallejo community that is equal, that is well studied, and filled with opportunity. That only happens with a well-oiled and well-running school system. I was the lobbyist for Atlanta Public Schools when the Olympics were coming to Atlanta. The Atlanta Public Schools made a decision. They wanted to close 8 schools in poor black areas because they did not want the world to see the poverty that was Atlanta. Maynard Jackson entered the room with Andrew Young. I'm sitting in the room, 23 years old. I watched these icons say, we cannot wipe out poor black people to impress the world with a lie. And I was given orders to go lobby on behalf of the district at the state capitol. What do you want? Do you want a good-looking show for 3 weeks, only to collapse into decay and crime and debauchery? Or do you want to actually establish a well-oiled, well-running school system? The CEO of Delta Airlines stood up and said, I cannot hire quality executives and have them move their families to Atlanta and not have good schools. Corporate, government, and city leaders came together to say, we will not just destroy these schools, but we will build a lasting legacy far beyond the Olympics. We are at a turning point, Vallejo. 5 years ago, we were making every city's list for the most miserable cities in America to live in. Mayor Davis came in and guided the city through bankruptcy. And now we are the #2 real estate market in the country. But will your mothers and your grandmothers be able to live in this city? Will the 5th and 6th generation Vallejoans be moved to Sacramento? Are we going to stand today and recognize that our future is in danger of being pushed up 80? Or will we collectively put our minds together, use the ingenuity of business, the ingenuity of government, the ingenuity of nonprofits, and invest in each other? Will we make jobs for each other? Or will we get our own little piece of the pie and not care what happens to anybody else? So, because I promised I wouldn't be here long, let me just tell you a couple of things that I believe already are in place and that I believe are at stake for the very future of our city. The Bible says that a prophet has no honor in their own town. Chief Andrew Perdue and I, 3 years ago, were invited to address the Congressional Black Caucus. He and I went to Washington, D.C., and they wanted us to speak on the programs that were happening here at Late Night Basketball at Vallejo. The president of the Detroit City Council was curious. How did we turn around police-community relationships? It was simple. The superintendent of Vallejo Public Schools at the time, Dr. Bishop, the fire chief, the police chief, the district attorney's office, the probation office, health and human services, all sat down once a week, every week, for months. We laid out a cooperative agenda. We started 6 different initiatives. Across the country, Vallejo was being recognized for its groundbreaking work. The kids thought they were coming to play basketball, but they were getting tested for HIV/AIDS. They were being signed up for health insurance. They were being signed up for job training programs. They thought they were coming to play basketball. They were learning CPR. You see, it's not that hard when we get out of each other's way. When nobody needs to be in charge, and yet we all have a common goal. How will we raise our future? Or are we animals, willing to cannibalize the weak and the helpless? Not only have we done it 4 years in a row, there's been not one negative instance. And I was told, you can't get that many young black men in one room and not have a fight. How disgusting and racist. But many people believed it. You're safer in that room with young black men than you are in a school board meeting in Vallejo. But there is a new day. And I believe that this new school board will bring with it a vision that will be painful. Jobs will be impacted. Schools will need to be closed. There is pain in our future. It is not a pain that is not being felt all over the country. Oakland is closing 20 to 22 schools as we speak. The question is not if we must do it. The question is how we do it. And the question is, what do we do after? Can we take these properties and use them to build something for our senior citizens, for our low-income citizens? Can we make the beloved community that Martin Luther King called for? Or will we leave it to scavengers to build high-rises and million-dollar homes and lock the citizens who've been faithful to this city for generations out of the dream? Will we leave behind black and brown children only to be left to Judge Davis? Or will we make a decision tonight, this week, to be bigger than our nation? Will we lead Vallejo? Will we not only be the most diverse city in America, but will we put that diversity to action? Will the leadership in City Hall look like the city? Will our administrators match the city? Will our policy be humane? And if we have to lay people off, will we make partnerships with public-private entities to retrain, to outsource, to help find new jobs? We can do this. We just need to sit in the same room, whether we're Filipino, whether we're black, whether we're straight, whether we're gay. We just need to get past the politics of destruction that matches our nation. That politics of destruction dominated our elections 2 years ago. We ate each other up. We disrespected each other. But just like the Trumpism of 2 years ago, our nation decided, and Vallejo decided this year to reverse course and admit we made a mistake. The Bible also says, you shall reap what you sow. And if you plant in hate, you will reap thorns. My challenge to you tonight, let us plant in love. Let us plant in justice. Let us plant in humility. Let us plant in honor. Let us plant and remember the citizens who died for this nation and did not have the right to vote when they died. Let us remember those men and women who were not able to marry before you were and yet loved America anyway. Let us remember children who sleep outside tonight. To Mr. Gross, Mr. Ubaldi, Mr. Fox, the challenge for you is not to let the lust of pseudo-power move you from the promises you made to get into office. To restore a measure of dignity to our school board. To have meetings that are run in honor and in order. To demonstrate before the very children you are to govern what it means not to talk over each other and to curse at each other. To exercise intellectual capacity, even as you must disappoint with some of your decisions. When you disagree with your superintendent, not to malign and belittle him in public, as has been done in past, but with professional ethics and morals and integrity. Learn how to disagree in public like gentlemen and ladies. Why should we raise children with respect when adults don't show it to each other? As I close, I have concerns. I am presiding over generational dysfunction. Our district should lead also in major investments in psychological services. We must break the cycles that have been planted in the soil of poverty. All of us have privilege. We're sitting in this room. The fact that we're sitting here tonight means that there is some privilege. If nothing else, you're employed by somebody. Walk around the corner. Don't drive. Walk around the corner. See how far you make it. Sometimes people do things out of desperation because there is nothing else available to them. We need to not look down at our brothers and sisters and pick them up. I have a uniquely American story. I was born in Washington, D.C., functionally illiterate through 5th grade, learning disability. The District of Columbia Public Schools said I was mentally retarded. I graduated from the top 5 of my class at Princeton. I'm one of 10 black men with a PhD in my field. But my local public school failed me because I was black. A society that invests in the least of these raises all boats. Vallejo, if we're going to be the best we can be, we need to eliminate areas in our city that are impoverished. We need to eliminate teachers who are afraid of children. We need to eliminate substandard facilities. We need to eliminate anything that does not reflect the greatness of our society. And that starts right here tonight. Whatever your political allegiance is, I don't care. Whatever group you represent, doesn't matter. You may be a part of Jumpstart. You may be a part of the Community Democratic Club. You may be a part of any other group. It doesn't matter. If you have high blood pressure, you take the same medicine. If you have diabetes, you're taking the same insulin. If you have a mama, you're taking the same orders. Let us leave behind the minute differences that are designed to keep us apart. And let us build something great and lead the nation. On election day, I stood with a gay white man, a cursing African-American educator, a Filipino Methodist minister. We prayed together. We decided that our city deserved better. Tonight, here we are. Now that we're all together, what are we going to pray about? What are we going to make better? When we leave this room, how will we make our city better? That is the challenge. When you go back to Superior Court, how will it be better? Can we make drug court in Solano County? Can we make all the other things and do it bigger and better? Can we do after-school programming bigger and better? Can we add psychological services bigger and better? Can we offer prenatal care bigger and better? Can we stop fighting about Orson? Can we? People are homeless. Can we actually do something together? And can we be great? That is our challenge. Have a good night. May God bless you and may God keep you.
Thank you.